Video. Let's not mess that up. All right. Oh, you know what? I usually change it to the blue. Sorry. All right. There we go. So I think we're good. All right. So I'm going to just hit the little intro and then I'll bring us in. All right.
Okay. Sounds good.
Perfect. Hello and welcome to Tech and Data Unlock. I'm your host, Bill Polifka. I am here with my good friend, Angela Thurman from Thurman Consultant. Angela, welcome to our show.
Hi, Bill. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited for our conversation today. I love this because I get to talk to so many experts. And Angela, you have such an impressive background, right? You've worked in a Fortune 50 company. You started out as an electrical engineer and got into project management. And tell our audience a little bit about your background and what you've been up to.
Okay, I'd be happy to. So yes, I did start out my career as an electrical engineer for the power management and distribution branch for the Space Station Directorate at NASA Lewis Research Center, which is now NASA Glenn in Cleveland, Ohio. And then after I left NASA, I've worked at several different companies. I worked for Eagle Pitcher, which was one of the world's leading manufacturers of batteries. But I worked in the specialty materials division. I was a sales engineer for silicon and germanium, both for semiconductor and electro-optical material purposes. And then I went.
Not done, Angela. You've been sales and this support and it's so impressive. It is so impressive. So let's talk a little bit about Thurman Consultant. And today you're helping many people, right, solve a lot of different problems.
Yes. So Thurman Co. is a project management consulting firm headquartered in Houston. Our team are remotely working, so we have partners all across the country. And we offer our clients primarily technical project management services. We also have contract management and supplier management. And we also have a project management training service as well. So when I say technical project management, we focus primarily on the small to medium-sized companies in highly regulated industries like aerospace, automotive, could also be biopharma or other industries that are highly regulated.
Yeah,
they tend to appreciate the more rigorous project management methodologies because they are so highly regulated.
Well, and these regulated industries are no joke, right? I mean, they have real compliance needs, and if you're in the aerospace industry, the zero tolerance mentality is real, right? We can't have accidents and while our airplanes are flying and our spaceships are going off, or whatever they're doing, right?
Right. That's exactly right.
Yeah, no, it's fascinating. And, I know we've had some really interesting conversations in the past around different types of technology and what you're seeing in the industry. For these small, medium-sized manufacturers, they have so many challenges, right? So what are you seeing in the marketplace where people are trying to put their time, energy, and effort?
So one of the things is trying to make the ISO certification. So they want to become recognized as a high quality manufacturer or a supplier to an aerospace or an automotive company. And so they have to comply with a tremendous number of requirements. And so those are not always centered around their own performance, but even certifying their own supply chain.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of work that goes into setting up a quality management system
Yeah.
and statistical process controls around the manufacturing process, validating that their manufacturing processes are in control, and having the evidence to show the auditor at the time that they are making their application to become a certified supplier.
Yeah. And Angela, I'm sure there's a lot of effort and work that goes into defining these scopes and, working with the customers to help with the change management processes. And this has to be where project management skills definitely are very valuable.
Absolutely, absolutely. That was actually one of the things that I loved best when I was a subcontracts program manager with Collins Aerospace, is being able to track the, let's say there was a corrective action that came from the quality engineer, um, and then that then flowed into an engineering design change as a result of a quality concern, and tracking that through the engineering change process, and then into production, all the way down to what specific serial number of a particular unit um, cut in that change. So what unit was the first unit in production to have this new design change, and what purchase order to what customer implemented that change, and including all of the documentation that had to be updated, including engineering drawings, installation control drawings, um, maintenance manuals, all of those things that had to be updated as well. Did a service bulletin have to go out to all of the airlines about this change? And
Yep.
just ensuring that all of those boxes were checked and we had followed the required processes.
So
I loved that.
where do you start with something like this, right? It's so much to manage.
Yes, it is. It is. And you simply cannot overlook any of it. So number one is knowing what the process is, and then working with all of your stakeholders to ensure that everything is properly followed and documented.
Right, right, right. So I got to imagine there's a lot of these little Kaizen events that you're doing and going in with folks and a lot of process mapping, right?
Oh, yes, yes, absolutely. And you're
So,
constantly looking for ways to eliminate any waste, duplication of effort. And while I was at Collins, one of the things that I did was to lead an electronic 5S over how do we store our documents with standardized naming conventions and things like that, so that at any given time, teammates can readily find the documents of the other team members. So if someone's on travel, they get sick, they leave the company, um, we'll always be able to easily access um, the necessary information.
so Angela, are you going in and helping with like the document like nomenclature and talking about how you're storing this and what does that change revision process look like? Like, what type of technology are you seeing people deploy to kind of help manage all this?
Well, that depends on what does the customer have, working with their own systems. But making sure that, I mean, it can be something as simple as Google Drive or Microsoft OneDrive. It can be something very simple. It can be something that's very complex. It may be a part of their ERP system. But whatever it is, you want to make sure that that these documents are version controlled and that only the current version is accessible to, say, the production team. So on the manufacturing floor, the production team can only access the current engineering drawings or the current work instructions. And that way you're not getting mixed up with previous versions, or there's no confusion about what are the current work instructions.
Right, right, right. So I imagine as you're going out here and helping people, there's some people that follow this really well and some people that don't follow it.
Unfortunately, yeah, if it is one of those kind of loosey goosey situations, um, then almost always there's going to be mistakes that lead to either risks or recalls or lost revenue of some kind. There are consequences of not following the rules.
I'm sure. And I also imagine it only takes, you know, that to happen once before people really want to start to embrace more of a controlled process, so more structure to the way they're trying to work. So,
Mhm.
um, so Angela, I got to imagine too, you've seen quite a bit of change with technology and the way technology is being used,
Yeah.
especially over the amount of successful endeavors that you have done. What are some of the things that you're seeing that people should be aware of?
Well, Bill, I've been around long enough to see the transition from actual paper files being passed from person to person to, of course, electronic files. So digitization of our information. So that's been a big advancement. Um, and I think that another thing is, as we're working toward more inclusion of and acceptance of tools that involve AI for increased productivity and efficiency, I think that is also something that we're seeing more and more in the workplace too.
Well, I think it's really interesting when we talk about digitization, right? That's kind of like the first step before you
Mhm.
do your digital transformation,
Yes,
right?
yes.
Because if you're not working in the digital world, it's very hard to leverage and transform the way you're working, right? And I think it's really interesting when that we think everybody's doing digital transformation, where some people are still working on the digitization pieces
Mhm.
of things as well. So, what, where are you, if you had to take and ask people a little bit about, like, because I know you talk to a lot of different customers, where are people in their maturity process and what are you seeing?
I actually am talking to a prospective client right now about this, and and exploring where their pain points are as they're trying to move toward a standardized set of tools for their company. And one of the things that is slowing them down is the fact that they're working with multiple spreadsheets, they're working with paper files, and um, and and different teams in different physical locations are not able to always access the data they need, because it's not, number one, digitized, and number two, stored in a cloud-based system. So that's really slowing them down. And so I do encounter customers like that. And then I have other clients that are completely cloud-based, and their greatest pain point is standardizing. So where is the data archived? How is it? What is the nomenclature that they're using? And getting their team members to follow the nomenclature and share data, and not hoard it themselves. Yep. So that's a common pain point as well.
Interesting.
Well, I think that there's kind of like this 50-50 split between companies that are moving to cloud-based services, and those that are still kind of hanging on to data that's stored locally, and not really knowing how to break down those walls so that everyone can access the data that they need to do their jobs every day.
Gotcha. So do you have any advice for listeners that are going through the digitization process?
Number one, I think that as you begin that process, decide early on how you're going to set up your structure, and then agree with your team what the nomenclature is going to be. And so set that out from the very beginning, and then let the data define for you where to store it. So this could be something that is kind of like Explorer based. You could have a file structure that's kind of like that, or you could have more of an organizational matrix structure. Mm-hmm. But decide, and then once you've decided, be consistent. Don't create little empires over here and an empire over there, because that's going to it actually creates silos in your organization, and you can't cross-reference the information you need. And particularly in an ERP system, that can limit the functionality that you may need.
I know when we started Simonics, we spent a lot of time building a lot of our processes out and making sure that we could come to an agreement. I know we set a lot around our team structures and, the way we wanted to store information and share information across the company. We took a lot of time, energy to make sure that everybody understood that. And, we definitely, our folder structures and how we name things and the way we color coded things, those became kind of important, especially because sometimes we were handling sensitive information, and we do share information internally and externally. And, we wanted to make sure that people knew, hey, these folders and these things, if you're putting them there, those are going outside the company as well, too. Right. And, making sure that we did a lot of that work up front, was really, really important to making sure that we could operate as a cohesive unit. And, I think that, so, Angela, going back to you started off in electric engineering and then moved into project management. There must have been a little bit of an evolution to go from.
Well, actually, it wasn't as significant as you might think, because my first job at NASA, I was an electrical engineer, and I was assigned to the power management and distribution branch. My specific role was to oversee two subcontractors in the design of load converters for the space station. And so I was actually acting as a project manager at that time, because I was in control of the budget for these contractors. There was a schedule. There were specific tasks that had to be accomplished. And because NASA Lewis is in close proximity to Baldwin Wallace College, which is in Berea, Ohio, one of the nearby villages of outside Cleveland, NASA would bring in Dr. Harold Kersner, who was a professor at Baldwin Wallace. They would bring in Dr. Kersner to teach all the engineers project management. And Dr. Kersner is a leading expert in project management theory. He's written several books. I believe he's one of the founders of the Project Management Institute. And so, I didn't realize it at the time, but I was actually learning project management from like the godfather of project management theory. And
way to go right to the top, right?
Yeah, just go to the top of the class. I still have his book, and I can refer to it whenever I want. And he's still cranking out the project management books.
Yeah.
So while I would be, like Westinghouse would bring in a lab unit, or TRW would bring in a lab unit, and I would design the tests and perform the tests in the lab. What I really was doing was being a project manager. And so that was kind of how I made my transition.
Wow. It sounds like a little bit of on the job learning with some great mentorship. And
Yes.
so, Angela, do you have any advice for people who are wanting to kind of follow in your footsteps on how to do what you do?
Well, I would definitely recommend joining your local chapter of PMI, the Project Management Institute, where you can meet other project managers. You can get great training. You can attend events, and you can be assigned a mentor. So that's the first step. And then there's some wonderful training available on LinkedIn. Bonnie Biafor definitely offers some wonderful training that's available on LinkedIn. Of course, I would recommend taking the project management training courses that are available on my company's website. But the best training of all is to join a project team and get to see how a project team works, and just try to contribute and learn more about project management. But I do always say that we are all project managers every day. We just don't think about it. We don't call ourselves project managers, because whether you're doing some kind of household project, you're planning, your dinner, you're planning a vacation, that is a project.
Yeah, no doubt, right? I mean, knowing what the end state is and then creating a plan, right, is a big part of
Schedule.
being successful.
You have requirements, you have a budget, and you have a schedule.
No doubt, no doubt. Well, no, that's wonderful. And Angela, I know you do a lot with like the Texas chapter of Women in Manufacturing as well too.
Mhm.
For the audience, How has things like being involved in things like the Texas chapter really helped shape your career?
So, Women in Manufacturing is a trade organization whose mission is to promote, support, and inspire women who have elected to pursue careers in manufacturing. And the Texas chapter was formed in 2020, right when
And
COVID
that
started.
great time for launching. I mean, I know we
Yes.
were trying to launch a startup back then. Not a
Yeah.
great time.
Um, and so I joined WIM in 2021, right about the time I launched my business. And I have found that being a part of this organization in particular has been a tremendous help, not only because of the business contacts that I made, but also because of the friendships that I've formed. So I've attended various conferences, but especially at the local level, I've attended networking meetings. I've attended um, different community outreach events. Like we had a Saturday where we went to the Houston Food Bank, which is one of the country's leading largest food banks. And we just gave back to the community by working at the food bank. Um, and just being able to have other women who are either in a role in a manufacturing facility or support manufacturing, as my company does, just really provides me with the opportunity to have other women who understand what it's like to have that sort of career. And I've just really formed so many good friendships. One of the things that I did was to volunteer as a board member. I'm no longer a board member, but for 3 years, I had different roles, including being the director of membership. And so I got to apply some of my background in statistics and track our membership engagement, and our chapter grew from about 200 when we first launched to over 1,700
That's
in
impressive.
that time. And we were one of the fastest growing chapters in the country. And at the time that I left the role of director of membership, we were, I think, about the second largest chapter in the organization. Considering that other chapters have been around for 15 years, I thought that was great progress.
Well, what do you think was the secret sauce to the growth in your analysis?
Well, for one thing, the headquarters in Ohio sends out a monthly roster of memberships, and we actually use that data because I'm kind of a data nerd. I use that data to like create heat maps of where our members were, and then we use that to decide where should we put regional leads to host the local events, like our networking events. How could we connect local members with one another? So let's say that there's 5 members out in Martha, and they don't even know that there are other members. We could connect them. We actually would send electronic greeting cards to all the new members when they joined. Just different things like that.
It sounds like, I mean, doing that research, being able to see things that you wouldn't normally be able to see, right? And then putting focused energy there, that can be a very valuable thing. And
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, listen, I'd love to talk a little bit about, what was your favorite project that you ever managed?
My favorite project.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, I would have to say, in 2011, yeah, in 2011, I was assigned to help a supplier that was facing a challenging deadline to certify some equipment for a Bombardier program. And this was to support the electronic vision system for the Bombardier Challenger 600, I believe. So I was told, we need you to go to Montreal for 2 weeks and just kind of see what's the lay of the land, and give them some advice. So I said, okay, I'll do that. And it ended up being 3 months. So I would go to Montreal for 2 weeks, then come home for the weekend to do laundry, and then go back. But I got to work with the hardware team and the software team, and set up just some very basic program management tools to help them move forward. And ultimately, we did get the product certified in time to support entry into service for that aircraft.
Wow. No, listen, I can think of so many things. Like, I know my time when I was in Iraq, we had thousands of construction projects going on, and just, the management of such scale in a country, and flying around in helicopters and traveling, and the chaos of it all, it can generate a lot of good memories.
Yeah.
For sure, for sure. Well, Angela, I think, such an amazing career, so many great stories to share. You're doing such great work and promoting women in manufacturing. And, I think there's a couple recaps and key points, right? One, to get into project management, the jump's probably not as hard as you think, right? Go out there, find a mentor, turn around and pick up a good book on project management, get into a certification, go through a PMI class, and you can get into the industry. I love the fact that you're telling people get out and network. I think you and I, we met through networking.
Yes.
And we've had many great conversations, and I'm incredibly grateful for that. So for all you listeners, I would say go out there and network, because you get to meet wonderful people like Angela. Where do you see the industry going? And let's give viewers a little bit of a understanding of that from your perspective.
Project management specifically,
Well,
or
just the future of technology, project management, and manufacturing as a whole. What what would you say is the future in Intel?
well, with manufacturing in particular, we're moving into the Industry 4.0 adoption, and I definitely see that as being a big change. But the adoption of more and more automation, with the advancement of more data collection in the manufacturing process, I think it's going to be a big advancement, a big help, because so much more information can be gathered, particularly for any automated processes, which can only help us, number one, with things like predictive maintenance, and the reduction of flaws, and any kind of quality issues. I think that that's going to be a big help. It'll also help with inventory control. So I think companies will be able to do a lot better job of maintaining the right levels of inventory to meet their customer demands, without having stockouts. So I think that we'll see a lot more of that.
Wow.
And so that it all goes back to data.
Yeah, no, I mean, part of the things that we're talking to folks about, right, is definitely that predictive state analytics and,
Mhm.
getting better control into quality, getting better control into inventory, getting better control into customer next best steps, right, and helping them see those things. There's just so much data out there, and I feel like we're drowning in data,
Mhm.
right? But how do you make it usable? I mean, any advice on that? How do you start to consume all this data?
Well, control charts. So whatever you can measure can be put into a control chart. And that's going to tell you whether or not your manufacturing processes are in control. And if they're not in control, then you need to go back and look at that process to see why. What is happening in your manufacturing process that needs to be corrected so that it can be stabilized. And you want to remove variation. That's what Six Sigma is all about: the reduction and removal of variation. So as you have more and more data, more places where you can measure, and then you actually have the measurements to create these control charts, you'll have better information about your processes as a whole. So I think that that's going to be a big help. And then um, any kind of visualization of the data. So whether it's a Pareto chart or um, uh, another, a pie chart, whatever method you use to map that data into some visual storytelling um, tool, dashboards of some kind, then you'll have a better idea of what's going on. So maybe it's some sort of, you know, rolling chart, rolling graph of
Yeah.
what's going on over time. And not just a snapshot anymore, but over time you can see what's taking place.
No doubt. I mean, data, it's so interesting how data can be visualized now. There's so many new tools coming into the marketplace, right? And there's
Mm-hmm.
so many things that you can be doing with your visualizations, with your predictive state monitoring, with things that you're doing. Even us, like, we're promoting into folks looking at graph technology and looking at the semantic layers and building digital twins and going in there and helping them connect data that has been disjointed in new ways so that we
Mm-hmm.
can't see these variabilities and things that are kind of creeping into business that if you don't connect, you wouldn't be able to normally see, right?
Yeah.
Well, Angela, I think, I mean, we could talk about this stuff all day long, but
We could.
like, one of my favorite things I like to do, and this is ask people like, hey, we had a great conversation today. For who else should we be talking to for the next guest on the show? And I try to put people on the spot to get this a little more organic. I know, but who do you think we should have on next?
Oh my goodness. Oh, so you've already had Dave Chrysler.
Yeah.
Um, I could introduce you to Lisa Turner,
I
who
don't know.
is a good friend of mine. She's a PMP from Columbus, Ohio, and her background is more in finance. And so her perspective is a little bit different than mine, a little
Yeah.
bit different than Dave's, also. Yeah.
Well, no, I think we'd love to talk to you, Lisa. I'll ask Angela to make the introduction, and this is how we get people thinking differently, right? Is by having open conversations, having different perspectives. And, I think it's so important to share our experiences. So, Angela, I really do appreciate you coming on today, talking on Tech and Data Unlock, and sharing your wisdom with folks. And, and I
Thank
know
you
I,
for the opportunity, Bill.
yeah, no, I value our friendship. I enjoy our conversations. I mean, if you want a great person to help you with your project management, to help you with any of your manufacturing problems, reach out to Angela. Angela, what's the best way for people to get a hold of you?
The best way to reach me is either through LinkedIn or just to send me an email at angela@thurmanco.com.
Well, you heard it here. Reach out to Angela. She's got great stories, great experience, and thanks so much for coming on the show today. So
Oh, it's my pleasure.
that's another episode of Tech and Data Unlock. Your host Bill Polifka signing off. All right.
How did that go?
I think